Hello, Chicago. Welcome to your weekend and welcome to Chicago Sports Podcast 2024 NFL Fantasy Football Preview Show, sponsored by Underdog Fantasy, the sure bet winning name in fantasy sports, and the official fantasy sports partner of Chicago Sports Podcast. Friends, we are your boys, Brandon, the Punky LT Hyatt, the creator, executive producer of Chicago Sports Podcast. I'm Cleet Campbell, your boy from Iowa, and we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Trax, my friend, did you know, I'm sure you know this, that fantasy football is the 21st century American sports fans' pastime. Statistica reports that nearly 30 million Americans, Trax, play fantasy football every year, fielding millions of teams, many of which end up like our Chicago Bears, watching the playoffs while the real money is being made from their couches. So tonight,
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the real money ain't made on my couch because I donate every freaking year, bro. It's like taxes. It just, it's crazy, man. It's in my pocket and then out right away.
Exactly, absolutely, yeah. Fantasy sports money actually lasts longer than your tax money. Isn't it crazy, Jack? You've got a lot of questions on the 2024 NFL fantasy season, and we have got the experts to break it down with you. Joining us tonight, our good friend, great to have him on the show, Dan from Bear Country Productions, the host of the popular smash hit podcast on the Bears, and you can hear it this summer every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. And of course, Dan does so much multimedia work. He has a British version of his Bear Country show. Dan, so great to have you with us. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Cleet. Thank you for having me, Trax. I appreciate the invite. This is an honor to be here. So really, thank you very much.
This should be a lot of fun for friends. And Trax, Dan, we know everyone's got questions. You're wondering, how can you lock in the NFL's next breakout superstar at a reasonable cost? How can you win your league? And most importantly, how can you score bragging rights over Kevin from accounting? Well, we know you're already on the clock for your upcoming fantasy football league draft season, friends. So we're going to go all out to give you the winning playbook that we ourselves stole from Patrick Mahomes' locker. We are joined tonight by an absolute NFL icon of reporting. This guy is from everywhere you need to be to cover the Chicago Bears. He's our good friend, Jacob Infante. And Jake is also a fantasy football expert. He'll be answering all your questions. So please get in that chat room. If you have any questions for Jake as we go along, feel free to answer them up. And I guess before we get going, before I turn it over to you, Trax, Jacob, my friend, how are you doing? Is this for you the calm before the training camp storm?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I appreciate y'all for having me as always. And I mean, this time of year, it's always interesting because there isn't really a whole lot going on, but it's a great time to just speculate, honestly, prepare for the upcoming season, kind of do previews, that whole deal, try and predict from a fantasy perspective, from a season perspective in general. If you're a sicko like me, use this, you can get ahead of the 2025 NFL draft, but it more or less is the calm before the storm. Everything's been at pretty casual pace at this point, but I'm just really excited for things to pick up. I mean, we're less than a month away from training camp. Preseason is going to be coming soon after, so I'm just enjoying this downtime while I have it, honestly.
Me too.
Hey, you know what? Jacob, did you know that when I asked you to do the Bulls segment with us, it was because of how popular you were when we did the NFL draft? And as soon as I saw you, do you remember? As soon as I saw you post on Twitter, we had a mad bum rush of all the people following you. And my eyeballs were the size of freaking saucers, man. It was crazy. So I was I'm not sure how well this is going to go with the Bulls draft, because we never really did it before. And I'm if there's a guy that could save our show, it's Jacob. And you're I'm really going to stick to the Bears, bro. I'm not going to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, I'll read other people's stuff about the NBA draft, and I like to, I watched it, but I'll be real, I wouldn't be able to tell you a whole lot about it. I'm I'm disillusioned with the Bulls as a franchise as a whole, so I haven't watched as many games as I probably should.
Basketball died for me when MJ retired.
Oh yeah, no, that's valid.
Yeah.
Clee, are we on two? Two, right?
Yeah, yep, right. So you can go right in there, Trax.
Okay, hey Jacob, we were just talking about this. You cover the NFL inside and out. It's America's favorite sport by Devin Hester, 99-yard kickoff return country mile. We are so enamored by fantasy football. You know, is it because it's our best chance to live vicariously through our favorite players, and the closest we'll ever get to a virtual reality NFL field and office? Like, you almost feel like you're a part of it. Like, you know, my guy, my team, this and that, I beat you. You know, it's kind of like a chance for us to explore the gridiron from the outside in. Is that kind of how you feel about that, Jacob?
No, for sure. And I think part of the fun in all this is just the team building aspect of it all. Everyone loves to do, like we love doing mock drafts every year. Love doing, predictions for, the Bears are going to sign whoever in free agency. And it's like, if you had the reins, how would you control your team? And I think, you get that opportunity in fantasy football, and that's what makes it a lot of fun. Especially with how popular fantasy football is in general. But the team building aspect of this whole fantasy football situation, it's a lot of fun for people. So I'd say that definitely plays a big role in it. And, obviously we're not NFL general managers by any means. So this is the closest we get, basically. So definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So before we get into this, into the secrets of building a great NFL fantasy football team for the 2024 season, let's address the things that could lead to a quick 3-and-out fantasy season. What are your biggest mistakes? What are the biggest mistakes that most fantasy owners, especially rookies like myself, make when drafting their teams? That's my question to you, because I'm terrible at fantasy sports.
I mean, I've certainly had my down years. I can't even lie. But I'd say to that point, a mistake a lot of people make is, one, ignoring bye weeks. And I mean, there are certain players where it's like, all right, if they fall far enough, you have to overlook the bye week sort of deal. But if you have, say, like 4 or 5 starters all with the same bye week, then that's essentially a loss unless you manage to play the waiver wire incredibly well. Then down the line that could end up really hurting you. So that's an issue I think people have, and I think ignoring depth too. I mean, they see, all right, I have all these starting lineup spots, and necessarily I don't have the I need to fill them first and foremost, and they ignore depth, because if guys get hurt at running back and you don't have good depth, you're in trouble. If you don't have good wide receiver depth and a guy gets hurt, you're in trouble. So I think they draft defense, they draft kicker too early, and then they don't necessarily go for pure value on the board. So that's just the way I operate, from a pure value perspective, really.
You know why I fail? I draft too many Bears.
Yeah, I do that too, man. I do that. And then back when Peyton Manning had all those stars, Marvin Harrison, Stokely, Dallas Clark, and I was really excited about Clark because the Iowa boy was linebacker turned tight end and all that cool stuff. I just Colts, Bears. Next thing you know, they got a bye week and I got nobody to play. It's freaking ridiculous, bro. And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you reminded me, Dan, because I'm going to tell you right now, there'd be a huge bear trap waiting for me because I'd have all Bears with all these guys at wide receiver. It'd be bananas, I'd have the 1, the 2, and the flex, all Bears, bro. Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's how I lose every time I try it.
Yeah.
So wait. So I also wanted to add on to that. I also never know who to draft. It's like I would think quarterback first, right? But that's not the way to go. Isn't that right, Nick? People don't normally draft quarterback with their number 1 pick anymore. Don't they go running back or receiver, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the most part, you're seeing a running back or a wide receiver going. More and more, you're seeing wide receivers getting drafted higher, just because there aren't as many true bell cow backs in the NFL as there used to be. Guys getting 300 carries or whatnot. So yeah, it's usually going to be a wide receiver. The only reason you don't go quarterback, because in real life, definitely quarterback's the most important position. But from a fantasy perspective, the difference between, say, the top quarterback and the 10th overall quarterback isn't that massive. So I think that's something where, scarcity kind of drives up the value of it. We don't have as many true superstar wide receivers. You don't have as many true bell cow running backs. So those are going to get bumped up a little bit. And tight ends as well. I mean, there aren't really a ton of game-changing tight ends. You can get like a top 4, top 5 tight end. You're really going to get some significant production. So I think that's that's a strategy that I like to keep as well. As scarcity, plays a value in it as well, and that can inflate a certain position's value really.
If I wait too long on tight end, I just remember tight end university. Anyone from Iowa will do just fine.
Yeah.
Even if they're in the NFC North, bro, and they're not on the Bears, I'm gonna grab that dude for sure, man.
But what makes the difference between a top quarterback and the top or the 10th best quarterback so similar? That's kind of where my fantasy for dummies questions come in, because if your top quarterback passes for 300 plus yards a game and your 10th best quarterback passes for 250 or less per game, I mean, wouldn't you want to have the Patrick Mahomes? And what makes the difference between the Patrick Mahomes or that wide receiver? Because the wide receiver is only catching so many passes from the quarterback, even though they have the most plays, that the quarterback's always touching the ball.
Yeah, and that's a good question, honestly. I think part of it is just the fact that fantasy, at least in most leagues, fantasy scoring doesn't really value passing yards as much. It's pretty heavily skewed on touchdowns. It's pretty heavily skewed on rushing yards, especially if you have a quarterback who can run the ball. I mean, that's why Justin Fields was a good fantasy quarterback. But, he didn't throw for a bunch of yards, but he ran the ball a lot. And that kind of inflates it to the point where, all right, maybe you do have, say 100 more passing yards than somebody. That's only 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 100 more rushing yards than somebody, that's 10 points. So I think that's part of where it comes down to. And I'll just pull it up something here real quick. So say Lamar Jackson had just as a random name last year had 331 fantasy points. And if you go down a little bit farther, I'll try and find like Trevor Lawrence had 262. So, I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, good quarterback. Lamar Jackson definitely better, but that's about, give or take, 70 points more over the course of, however many games. 15, that's only like 3 or 4 more points a game. Whereas if you get a bona fide bell cow running back, you're going to get more yards. The increase of a touchdown is going to get more yards. And also, like a rushing touchdown is 6 points, a receiving touchdown 6 points, a passing touchdown is only 4.
Okay.
So that's another thing that goes into it as well. Some leagues are the same, but that's pretty standard for 4 points for a touchdown. So it's a little bit skewed towards the running backs and receivers, as well as some of the elite tight ends. There aren't too many of them, but there are a couple who can really take you over the edge.
Jacob, can you explain to our newer and novice fantasy players what does ADP mean?
Yeah, so that's average draft position. And that's more or less over the course of like all the leagues that have already drafted where a player's going. So if it says ADP of 12, then that means that person's going, on average, the 12th overall pick, which is, either end of the first round, beginning of the second, depending on how many people you have in your league.
How accurate is that? I'm sorry. How accurate is that ADP? Is it, for the most part, is it spot on? Can you pretty much set it, forget it, trust it? Or is it something that you could just kind of take with a grain of salt, but sometimes right?
I mean, I'd say it's something worth considering for sure. You can look at because that's so many different people. It's such a massive, like you said, millions of people play fantasy football, like you said at the top of the show.
Sure.
that's a pretty big database of draft picks that you have to go off of, and that's the consensus opinion. So, I mean, I feel like you have to consider it to a degree. If you're, say you're taking a 7th round guy in round 1 just because, oh, that's my gut feeling, that probably isn't going to work out for you. Just more or less, I, trust a lot of the fantasy experts, but every once in a while, I think it's nice to go with your gut. And maybe if you have to reach on someone, at least compared to their ADP, compared to their, where the ESPN analysts or the sleeper, Yahoo, NFL, CBS, whatever, those analysts have them. So I do like to consider ADP. It's certainly helpful to determine, like, all right, a lot of people feel confident in this guy. I probably should be too. But, every once in a while you have a gut feeling on someone and it's like, all right, I think this person's getting drafted too high. I'll go for someone with a lower ADP because I think they have the chance at a better year.
And that my previous question to you kind of like piggybacks to my next one. Like, who is the most valuable overall consensus or number 1 pick in this 2024 fantasy season?
Yeah, so I'd have to say Christian McCaffrey. He'd be the number 1 pick. And if any of you get the first pick in your fantasy drafts, I take McCaffrey for sure. Because, well, literally the only concern has been injuries, but the last 2 years he's been healthy. He's playing at an incredible level, scoring a bunch of touchdowns. He's in a super running back friendly system, and he's an elite receiving back. So especially in like a PPR league where you get points per reception, that's incredibly valuable. Like, you're getting probably 60, maybe even 70 receptions out of Christian McCaffrey. That's more that's a lot more points than the average running back. So McCaffrey, I think, will be the number 1 pick for sure. Just because of, what's the system around him, but also how the 49ers rely on him and the receiving value that he brings. So McCaffrey's my number 1 guy. There are a couple others that I definitely factor in. Probably CeeDee Lamb is someone that I'd consider. Tyreek Hill, someone I'd consider, and Breece Hall, the running back for the Jets. Just because, Breece Hall is also another very receiving back, and he's young. He's on the up and up. But yeah, McCaffrey would be the first overall pick for me.
We kind of touched on this earlier, you especially, Jacob. We're all guilty of falling in love with our favorite players, and that can kind of burn us. Like, Dan was talking about earlier, and myself, how essential is it to draft a balanced team for your roster?
I think it's key, honestly, and look, it can be tough at times. I know I've struggled with it, like especially early on when I first got started. I remember 2009 was the first year I started playing fantasy football, and the first round I went with D'Angelo Williams. Ended up turning out well. He was a Pro Bowl running back that year, I think, or if not, he hit 1,000 yards. And the second round, I was really excited because the Bears had just traded for Jay Cutler. So I took him in the second round, and he was like a middle of the road quarterback in fantasy football. And I didn't have a bad year that year, but I didn't make the playoffs. And that pick probably did it for me, just because I couldn't let my fandom aside. And, and like the later rounds, it's nice to, have shoot a flyer on a guy where it's like, oh, I think Roschon Johnson's going to have a good year. I might as well stash him on my bench because I'm a Bears fan. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because it's such a low risk move. But I definitely don't reach for guys on your favorite team. I think that's just more often than not, it's an opportunity to get burnt, which especially in years past, the Bears haven't had a good offense really. So there's been a ton of like very valuable fantasy players. I think it's going to be a little bit different this year, but still, just because the Bears have, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Odunze, Swift, Komet, Caleb. I wouldn't take any of those guys round one just because, hey, I like the Bears. They're good. There's a lot more strategy that goes into it more than that.
So you were talking earlier about tight ends and like that the basic conventional fantasy draft wisdom is to wait on tight ends until later in the draft. But with superstars like Travis Kelce becoming a greater focal point in the offensive game plans every season, is this conventional fantasy draft wisdom, like, is it still true? Do you still wait on a tight end?
I mean, in certain cases, yeah. I think that I'm a little bit salty because I traded for Travis Kelce last year in one of my leagues, and I ended up getting burnt because he was hurt for a while and his production wasn't as good. And I had to give up Puka Nacua to do it because I'm like, it's a huge tight end upgrade. My tight end was like Pat Freiermuth. He was one of the worst starters in the league fantasy wise when I had him. But yeah, so Kelce was an upgrade there, but it wasn't worth it to the point where, like I shouldn't have made that deal. So all that aside, I think that if you can get a Travis Kelce or a Sam Laporta or Mark Andrews, then I'd say definitely do it. But once you get to that, tight end 4, tight end 5 range, I think you can definitely wait it out a little bit because there isn't as much of a gap between the rest of those guys. I wouldn't take Kelce I'd take him a little bit lower than where he's been drafted the last couple of years, just because he still had a very good year. But I'm not necessarily sold that he's a definite tight end 1 like he has been in past years in a fantasy format. He might be top 5, but for someone who's getting older, someone whose production declined, I wouldn't take him round 1, but say if you're in like round 3 or something and you really like Kelce or Laporta, then I'd certainly consider.
I got a question for you really quick actually Cliff does. It's a good question. Yeah. I like it. Before I ask the question I had ready for you, where do we draft Caleb this season? He's a rookie, but he could be good if he develops quickly. Where would you?
Yeah. So, I think
my guess is late.
I think that's a good question, honestly. Because the weapons are incredible. He's a very talented player, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and we saw what CJ Stroud did last year. He had a really good rookie year. It shows that you can dominate from a fantasy perspective as a rookie quarterback. That said, it's not super common, though. I think that, and also considering the fact that as a rookie quarterback, you're probably going to make mistakes. It's a cold weather climate, so down the stretch, you're going to get a little bit harsher winter air, snow potentially playing at Soldier Field, so that might affect his production a little bit. I wouldn't take him to be your starter in fantasy this year, but definitely as a backup, I'd consider him just because of how good. Well, 1, how high the upside is, but 2. The weapons that he's throwing to. This is the best offensive weapon group the Bears have had in the modern era, at least on paper. So I think it's a really good situation for him to come into. I'd take him probably, later rounds, because that's where you take a backup quarterback in fantasy football. I'd consider him maybe around like quarterback 15, give or take. I know ESPN has him around quarterback 13. So, I like to err on the side of caution with rookies a little bit just because you never know. But, I think 13 isn't a massive stretch just because of what's around him, the pure talent that he has. So, yeah, that's probably where I'd take him. Consider him to be a backup option. I wouldn't put a lot of faith in him to be your starter for a full season, but I feel like he's the type of guy where, if your starter gets hurt or he's on bye, you could slot in Caleb Williams. He put up a decent number.
Yeah, and I have a 2-quarterback league, starting 2 quarterbacks, and I would probably put him as not my number 1, but my number 2. I got burned honestly with Patrick this year. He had a rough season when you compare to previous years with Patrick Mahomes, and I was a little disappointed. So even a star-studded, perennial Pro Bowl, multi-Super Bowl champion can sometimes burn you, not just the rookie. But Jacob, as far as like those sleepers, we all like to go on sleepers because we like to be like the geniuses. I told you so. That's my guy. I kind of got that feel right now with that rookie running back from the Chargers, from everything that they've been saying about him, about being a potential bell cow. But who, more importantly, you being the star stud that you are, who is your lead pipe sure to produce fantasy sleeper pick this season, bro?
I think that's interesting. You bring up the Chargers rookie running back, Kamani Vidal is his name.
Yes, sir.
So I in a dynasty league that I'm in, I traded for Gus Edwards because I figured he's going to start the year as the running back. I didn't give up
healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't give up a ton to get him. I just figured start the year he could be a decent starter potentially. But we've seen time and time again, like especially with Isaiah Pacheco, with Dameon Pierce, guys like that, later round running backs who can step in pretty quickly after a couple weeks and produce at a high level in fantasy. So Vidal's definitely a guy that I'm looking at there. Someone else I'm looking at, I'm a little bit interested in, is Trey Benson, the running back from the Cardinals who got drafted this year. So I figure, the production right out of the gate might not be amazing. I think that, James Conner is going to start up there, but he's 29, I believe. So he's pretty close to 30, and 30 is that's like the death wish number for running backs in today's NFL. So Benson, with how explosive and the contact balance he had at Florida State, I think that he's certainly someone who could end up taking he could end up taking a bigger role sometime down the stretch. So those are just two rookies. Actually, I didn't even mean for that to be the case, but it just happened that way. Those are two guys that I'm interested in because I think they could put up some decent numbers.
Now, I don't mean to just keep asking questions. I don't mean to, take your questions away from you, Cleet, if I'm talking too much. But I'm a rookie at this myself. So, I would like to know, when should owners, especially optimistic, overly optimistic Bears fans like Trax myself,
guilty as well,
when do they draft defense? Because I know nothing about, wait, you have a defense and you draft a defense? Okay. And what defense? Where do you pick your defense? How do you determine what makes a good defense, and when do you draft them?
So me personally, I very rarely draft a defense early. There's usually, if not my last pick, my second to last pick.
Damn.
Defense and kickers, I tend to wait. I honestly value kickers more than I do defenses because there can be really talented defenses that can struggle against teams on basically any given night. So it really just depends on on that end, who they're going up against. So what I like to do is there's a strategy where you just utilize the waiver wire and you go for teams that have easy competition, and you can just switch them out on the waiver wire each and every week. And that gives you the opportunity to get better depth of wide receiver, at running back, even tight end. So the defense, there might be a few where, say if they get a lot of interceptions or they, produce a lot of sacks, then all right, you can justify taking them a little bit earlier. But even then, that's probably the last 5 rounds for me, at least, because I've seen a consistent trend with some of the more losing teams that I've been in leagues with is they take defenses really early just because, I need to fill my entire starting lineup right out of the gate. I need a defense, so let's take a defense. That's not a strategy that works out often for them. So I usually wait a little bit later for that.
Yeah, and I like to get the Bears defense. So when I get it early, and it's usually with a bunch of guys that are all Bears fans, I pick my defense way, way early. Even when we couldn't recognize, some of the defensive backs said we didn't even know if we were supposed to be in man or zone. I was still picking that defense, man. I'm like, so I could get myself into trouble with that, man. But Jacob,
just to piggyback on that, where would you draft the Bears defense then this year, Trax and Jacob? Just curious.
I could take this just to start. With the Bears specifically, I mean, I think they're gonna, like last year. I believe, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe they tied for the most interceptions as a defense in the NFL last year. So with that, said, I think they're going to be a little bit more productive, but I'm just a little bit worried about the sacks because you have Montez Sweat, but you don't have a solidified edge rusher alongside there. And you have younger defensive tackles. In theory, Dexter could break out. In theory, Pickens could have a better year than he had last year. But there's still a lot of unknown there. So honestly, I wouldn't mind taking the Bears in like the last round or the second to last round defense. That's like a fringe startable defense. I feel like is a reasonable belief just because, they have a talented defense. It's just a matter now of, are they going to be able to get sacks, which I don't know if they will. And that'll definitely hurt them a little bit in fantasy formats, but you could do worse. You really could do worse. I believe that. So I feel like, they could be in the top half of the league, but I don't know if they'll be like a high-end starting caliber defense in fantasy.
Yeah, and then Jacob, old school or yesterday's fantasy football draft wisdom says load up on running backs. But with how halfbacks are utilized and valued in today's game in the NFL, is that conventional fantasy draft wisdom still true to this day, or is it a little bit different,
I mean, to an extent, yeah. I think that it's definitely helpful if you have one of those bell cow backs. Like if you have McCaffrey, him being the top guy, really. If you have him, that's a difference maker for your team right out of the gate. If you have someone who can catch passes at a high level, like, Jahmyr Gibbs, or, less of Saquon Barkley nowadays, but even him, a Bijan Robinson, like you're going to be able to get a lot of points in point per reception leagues. So, I think that running back is still very valuable. There aren't a ton of them that are insanely better than the rest because so many teams are going for, more bell cow approaches nowadays. So I'd say either be aggressive in getting 2 top running backs right out of the gate, like 2 in the first 3 picks. But if you can't do that, then take 1 and then probably wait a couple more rounds until you get your running back 2. Because that running back 20 to running back 32, give or take, there's not really a massive gap there. So, that's necessarily a lot of receivers are probably going to go before those guys go off the board.
We're just real quick on that. Where would Walter Payton stand in today's fantasy game? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, geez, that's I'd take him running back 1. I'd take him running back 1 for sure. Because obviously the high volume, the yardage, the yards per carry, what he could do in the receiving game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a guy obviously historically better than McCaffrey. I think in today's NFL, I think he'd be the number 1 pick. Walter Payton would be the number 1 pick.
What if he kicked a field goal in the game? Would that even count?
I think it would. I want to say it would. I'm trying to remember. There was some position player who kicked a field goal last year. I don't remember who it was. I don't know if I don't know if he got points for it. I'm sure Walter Payton would have. If you kick a field goal as a running back, I'm sure you get the points for it because why not?
I would go in there and edit the shit out of that. I'd be like, override, 5 million points. You
get the bonus round.
Absolutely.
The draft. Let's go. Hey, no, seriously, like, when I look at a quarterback now, and there was times where Patrick got me in trouble last year, and Fields actually had more numbers because he ran it in. I look at quarterbacks, and that's why I looked at Patrick, because they can go run it in and get you 6 points. And they can get you rushing yards and passing yards and all that, triple threat stuff. And that's what I look for, a multi talented quarterback that is a dual threat type guy. And it's no longer for me Peyton Manning, unless you're a guy like Tom Brady or something that's just going to light it up 400 or 500 yards every night with 5 or 6 touchdowns, all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's the exception to the rule. But for me, I look at it like I want a dual threat QB. Do you feel like you kind of do the same thing or no?
Usually I do. Yeah. I'll admit another thing I don't do is I don't draft quarterbacks super high. I mean, I mentioned for the same reason where there isn't a massive gap between the top guy and say like quarterback 7 or 8. I usually wait a couple rounds.
Yeah.
But to that point, if you can get a dual threat quarterback, that can be a difference maker for you. So this year, I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson every year, he's a very, valuable fantasy commodity. Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson, someone I'd watch out for. The Colts only played in 3-4 games last year, but put up really good fantasy numbers because of his running ability. And because of that, honestly, so I'm in a dynasty league, and that's where you draft a team and you keep the same guys every year. And then your drafts you only draft incoming rookies. Mm-hmm. So I realized I had Dak Prescott last year. He was fantastic in fantasy, a top 5 quarterback. But I traded him.
Oh,
wow.
Okay. I was wondering during this conversation about what Justin Fields offered as far as that ultimate threat, dual threat. That's why I always thought that maybe they should. I'm a big proponent on my show of bringing back the T formation in some aspect of the game, like even just a couple of packages that you have in your offense. So I would have always thought that he would have been really good in the fantasy game along with the T formation for the Bears. But my last question to you on this is like, what ultimately is going to decide the fantasy football success or failure in most leagues in today's modern, 2024?
Oh, is he still with us?
Did I cut out? Am I gone?
I think Jacob froze. That's what's going
yeah.
on.
Yeah, we'll try to get him back, fellas. Again, friends, Jacob Infante of Windy City Gridiron, our special expert guest tonight on our Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse 2024 NFL Fantasy Football Draft Preview Show, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Chicago Sports Podcast. Fellas, great information there. Oh my gosh, Jake knows his stuff inside and out without question. Man, guys, this is getting me hungry for some football. Let me tell you. Hey, Trax, I tell you what, till we get Jacob back, let's talk a little bit about our other special guest tonight. He is the popular host of a blockbuster Bears podcast on YouTube, Trax. It's Bear Country Podcast and Productions. He is Dan, a former employee of the Bears from 1994 to 1996, who has turned his passion for the Bears into a community. Trax, look at that right there, growing the year over. Now, Trax, you and I want to get. You didn't hear this story, Trax. You and I, we talk about wearing our Bears loyalty and love on our sleeve. Trax, check this out, Dan. If you could show the Punky LT right here, check this out, Brandon Hyatt. That is Bears loyalty right there.
That's
George
what's up.
Stanley Hallis. Dan, you were telling me before the show. Can you give our viewers a quick story of how did that iconic tattoo that you live and wear proudly, loud and proudly everywhere you go, how did that become a reality for you?
Well, 1985, obviously. I was 10 years old when that happened. My parents didn't watch sports at all, and that, they took the entire world by storm. We talked about the British Bears who do a show on BCP, and they both became fans because of the 84, 85 team. So it started there. And I never liked tattoos, but I went through a divorce many, many years ago, and I just decided, screw it, I'm getting a tattoo. And so I thought, I saw somebody had like a really cool, like it looked like Spider-Man was like somebody ripped their skin and there was a Spider-Man outfit underneath it. So I thought, oh, that'd be really cool to have a Bears jersey, you know, with the GSH under it. So I just kind of drew it up, and I had a friend that owned a tattoo parlor that did it, but they didn't have the right blue. So if you look at it, it's more like cubby blue. You know?
Yeah, like you said, it could use a touch up maybe for a 2024 playoff season.
Yeah.
But Dan, for 3 years now, you have been hosting this hit podcast show, Bear Country production podcast and productions. Can you talk about the genesis of this? Where is this been an
Look
idea
at-
you have?
Look
for a
at
while?
he just posted it. Look at the numbers. That's Jacob. I guarantee you he was sharing our link. I'm sorry to break rank, but I knew as soon as those numbers started climbing, Jacob retweeted on Twitter. Man, it is a beautiful thing to watch,
It
man.
is Jacob Infante is back, ladies and gentlemen. We owe Jacob Infante
Dude is magic.
big thank you. Jacob just about quadrupled our audience tonight, but linking us hooking us up.
Checks in the mail, bro. Checks in the mail.
It is Jacob. We appreciate your time. Great to have you back with us, your friend. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the great Jacob Infante of Windy City Gridiron. Check out his Bulls, Bears, all Chicago sports coverage, and great commentary on Twitter, or now known as the X, I guess, every night. Jacob, you were what got me through the misery that was the start to the 2023 Bears season by you keeping it real week in and week out. You were my therapy, my friend. Hey, before we call the wrap on fantasy, if we could wrap it with this, Aaron Rodgers, still a minority owner of the Chicago Bears, 4-time MVP, blah blah blah. What is Aaron Rodgers' fantasy value these days, post torn Achilles?
So that's going to be really difficult to gauge, honestly, because he's throwing to Garrett Wilson. He's throwing to Mike Williams. There's a lot to like with him. And obviously, just a couple of years ago, him playing at an MVP level, there's a lot to like there. But he's, in the twilight of his career, coming off a serious injury. I wouldn't draft Aaron Rodgers to be your starter. I'd be more than willing to, take him on as, a backup quarterback necessarily. If you have someone like, I don't know, if you get a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or someone is going to be a good starter for you, take a flyer on Aaron Rodgers. Why not? And then maybe you can trade him for something later. Or just hold the league hostage, have a stud backup. I'm projecting him just to be safe around where around where I take Caleb Williams, honestly. I think that there's more upside with Caleb. The middle ground, I think, is higher with Aaron Rodgers, but I think that the floor is pretty low with Aaron, too. So that's something I'm a little bit worried about. I'm not going out of my way to draft him, but in the last couple of rounds, if he's there, I'll take him.
I just want to know, is he going to do psychedelics in a cave? Because I think that really messed him up, bro. If he stays out of that cave, he might have a shot at making it a full season,
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what he's doing this offseason? I have no idea.
Or he wins another MVP.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Check, Stan. You got anything more for Jake before we cut him loose?
I know one thing he ain't doing. He ain't doing Danica no more. No way.
No way.
I don't think he's doing any right-minded woman in America, hopefully.
There's been some stories about him and some male friends that have come out. So who knows? It seems like Danica would be the perfect cover-up, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
All right. Jacob, again, my friend, thank you so much for your time tonight, friends. You can read Jacob's great work at Windy City Gridiron. Before we let you go, what parting advice, what parting wisdom do you have for our fans for the 2024 NFL Fantasy Football Draft season?
I'd say play the waiver wire. I think that each week, especially early on, you're going to get guys who are going to produce really well. Like looking last year, just on the Rams alone, Kyron Williams and Puka Nakua, they were both Pro Bowlers. No, you weren't drafting them. You weren't drafting Puka Nakua. You
No.
weren't drafting Kyron Williams. If you were, it was in like the last round. So especially in those early weeks, play the waiver wire. Uh, and because, that's an opportunity to get a potentially game changing talent. And sure, maybe you can get someone like that in like week 7 or week 8, but I feel like, with that many weeks behind them, they're not just going to all of a sudden explode. So play the waiver wire, get aggressive with it, get aggressive with it early. Uh, don't go cutting guys that you drafted in the early rounds, because you drafted them in the early rounds for a reason. But like some of those late round flyers you're taking, if there's a guy who, went off for 25 points who's on the waiver wire in week 1, go for it. Honestly, that's what I do for sure. So those are the things I'd keep in mind, but also make sure to set your lineups. Set your lineups, because
Dude, yes. Yes.
so many people don't do that, and
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh man, I didn't realize so and so
Yeah.
got hurt,
And
and it
how
comes
many
back to bite
countless
them in the
points
ass.
are left on the board because of that, Jacob, week in and week out,
Oh
man.
jeez, I mean, you're looking at, like, say if you have, two guys either on bye or out with injury. That's like as many as probably like 30 points you're missing out on every single
Mhm.
week, just off two guys alone. So if you have a bunch of guys hurt, a bunch of guys on bye, that eliminates your chances of winning essentially. So
Mhm.
check your lineups, uh, turn on notifications on your phone,
Mhm.
and whenever, because they send it to you whenever someone gets hurt or someone gets ruled out. If you see it, just swap them out. Really, it takes like 10 seconds, and it can really save your season.
Mhm.
Hey, outside of your parting gift of Pookie spit on that thing, Nakoa, um, is is there anybody else that like came in like a wrecking ball and you're like, what the heck? Because like honestly, you're looking at the great white hype receiver over there, thinking like he's the only guy you're going to throw the ball to, for as far as the Rams go. I was
Yeah.
not expecting that at all, but the most important thing that this is a part 2, by the way, so you got to compartmentalize, break it down, and do what you do. But here's the thing about me, man. I got to figure out how many times is it healthy to draft people on the same bye week, because I can get into trouble with that. So help me with that.
Yeah. So first, another guy I think last year who stood out, who broke out right out of the gate, is Sam Laporta, the tight end of the
Yeah.
Lions.
Oh yes.
Not a lot of people, rookie tight ends, they don't they don't produce a ton really.
Right.
But Sam Laporta did. He bucked the trend, and after a very high, right out of the gate, it was impressive. So Sam Laporta is a guy. And then, sorry, would you mind repeating the last part of that just to make sure that I'm getting it right?
Yeah, just the bye weeks. Like, how many bye weeks can you have? Like, in your starting roster. I know, like the bench. Well, I guess that would be important too. But just in general, like, say if I got 12 guys or 9 guys or something on, and the majority of maybe 5 or 6 of them is bye week of like 12 or 10 or something like that. Like, what is healthy there for amount of bye weeks?
I'd say two's fine.
2.
Two is fine in your starting lineup. Three is
Oh
pushing
man.
it.
Yeah.
Three's pushing it. More
Done
than that
pushing it.
is going to hurt you.
Yeah, it always hurts me. Okay. Damn it. I wish I would have had this question answered a long time ago, bro. Please, oh, please.
Hey, Dan, you got anything for Jacob before we let him go?
No, I just want to say it's been great talking with you. I mean, I do follow you on. I don't like saying X because it just sounds too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Twitter's. I
Yeah.
follow you on Twitter, and I always love what you have to say. You always make perfect sense. So I appreciate you, and
Of course.
tell Lester I said hi.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I'll make sure to, I'll shoot him a text right now. Just let him know, like, hey, just give him a heads up. So, Appreciate that.
Also check your DMs because I did invite you on the show many moons ago, and I don't think you saw it.
Yeah. No,
He's not good with those DMs, bro. I've known him for a couple of years. We've had him on the show many times.
I'm not a big DMs guy, but but we'll follow up with me on that later. We'll rectify that.
Awesome, thank you, appreciate it.
No,
Great talking to you.
yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Jacob, thank you so much. He is Jacob Infante, the award-winning writer of Chicago, Windy City Podcast, friends. Follow him on X or the Twitter, whatever you prefer, and Windy City, gridiron.com. Hey, Jacob, thanks so much. You have a great weekend. Can't wait to talk Bears football with you in a few weeks.
And of course, man, thank you guys for having me. As always, it's great chatting with you guys. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Anybody that wins fantasy football this year, 10% goes to Jacob.
Please,
Exactly.
please. I could take
10%
it.
cut, ladies and gentlemen, to our fantasy football insider, Jacob Infante. But don't forget, friends, if you're playing fantasy sports, you know this tracks, my man. There's only one place you need to play, and that's Underdog Fantasy, the official fantasy sports partner of Chicago Sports Podcast, is our official sponsor for tonight's NFL 2024 fantasy preview show with Jacob. So, guys, thank you so much. Fellas, don't want to get switch gears here really quickly, get off the subject, but want to let our great friends and fans out there know we'll be talking about this in just a few minutes, but the Chicago Blackhawks have found their next wingman for Connor Bedard. And I tell you what, fellas, he is tremendous. With a second overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Blackhawks have selected Ayrton Lashanov. I can personally tell you how good this kid is, guys. 18 years old, all Big Ten Defenseman of the Year, all Big Ten Rookie of the Year. I covered him the United States Hockey League when he played for the Green Bay Gamblers. And fellas, this guy can put on a check like few kids I've ever seen. This is an enforcer, Trax and Dan. This is just an absolute guy who's going to have Connor Bedard's backside. He's going to have his blind side. Great pick, in my opinion. We'll talk about that here in just a few moments. Blackhawks will also be drafting, fellas, later tonight at number 18. But before we go there, let's go back to our other special guest tonight, Trax, because we want to talk about guys who captured the imagination and the hearts of Bears Nation. It's our good friend Dan from Bears Country Podcast and Productions. In 3 years, this has become must-watch podcasting tracks for so many members of Bears Nation. Dan, can you take us through how did the idea of this come about? Where did you get the idea for Bear Country Podcast?
It's actually a good question because I don't know, 5 years ago, my wife bought me a podcast mic, not this one because I upgraded. But she bought me a mic, and I was like, for Christmas. And I was like, what is this for? She's like, it's for you to do a podcast and stop talking about the Bears to me all the time. And my first question out of my mouth was, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
She's like, well, it's people like they have they're online and do like a YouTube thing, or they just talk about the Bears, audio stream, whatever. I'm like, who's going to want to listen to that? And it really took I'll be honest, I never really scouted Justin Fields because the few games I did see him play, or just some clips of, in college, I just kind of thought Cam Newton. And so I never really scouted him. And then once he fell to us and we picked him up, I was elated because of the potential. And I thought, well, this is going to be the kid that's going to be in MVP talks, for this team in the next few years. So really that's what projected me forward into actually trying this out. And it's been a ride, it's been up and down. It hasn't been what I thought it's been as far as Justin. But I will say the sky is looking up for this team because now that we're into the Caleb Williams era, I mean, the minute that I saw him throw a pass, I was like, man, it sucks. We have Justin Fields. We're never going to have that kid. And here we are. Here we sit with him in our laps. And I'm really looking forward to this coming decade with him because I really think he's going to be the difference maker. I think we're going to finally stop. I think he's going to be the answer to our quarterback questions that we've had all these years. In fact, I predicted 13-4 personally, and the Bears become the first team to win the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. Why?
Wow.
because the Bears have never had they've been known for quarterback futility their entire existence. It would just be like so, I don't know, serendipitous that they would end up with this whole situation that had him fall into their laps with that trade last year. It would just be so, I don't know, perfect for them to put all that behind them and become the first team to win it all with a rookie, especially with the team they've built around him and the defense. So kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah, I'm enjoying it now. This has been a lot of fun.
You know, you have some success being a rookie 3 years ago, man, and what you've built is ridiculous. I mean, your followers and everything. I've looked at your infrastructure and everything. It's phenomenal, man. Your video, your footage, co-host, everything. It's brilliant work, and we just want to give you a quick round of applause, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And it feels good to hear you say that, because I think we do have a good crew on BCP. You know, we like to have fun. We're not really scripted. I mean, hell, most of the time we don't even know what we're talking about, you know, half an hour before the show, but we just make it happen. We're literally a podcast made by the fans for the fans. So we like to have other podcasters come in. We've always been all about conglomerating with other podcasters like yourself. We'd love to have you guys on our show like ASAP. And I'm glad that you reached out to me to come on yours, because this is just what it's all about for us. It's about having other fans on the show. We tried to build it around, you know, people from chat joining us, but you know, understandably, people are hesitant to do that. But when you're used to doing it like we are, it makes it a lot easier to conglomerate with other podcasters and help each other to grow, because this is for me, this is our community. Like, you know, NBC Sports, and you know, it kind of always pissed me off that all the big guys, you know, the Kaplans of the world and so-and-so's made their own podcasts, because it's like, you're already doing that for a living. You're already that's what you're doing for a living. This is our realm, and this is why we're doing it, is for our fan base, you know, because we can talk differently than you guys can on the air, you know. So it's just I love the community that we all have. I think we should all support each other as Bears content creators, sports content creators. You know, we have Lions fans, Packers fans. Packers fans hasn't been on the show yet, but we've had the Lions. We're good friends with a Lions fan that's come on a couple times. I just think it's a great atmosphere when you're all able to support each other like we are. And that's why I'm so grateful that you reached out to have me on with you guys tonight. And I would love to return the favor. And I'm on vacation next week, but after that, love to make it happen with you guys. Really appreciate you having me on tonight from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Well, by proxy, I got to give the credit to Cliff, because he was the one that dropped it in my ear, and a text message to me. We're going to be catching up at Canton here in just a couple weeks, but hats off to Cliff for getting us connected, because, you know, with Jacob on and everything, it was great to have an extra guy like you. And now look at Jacob brought like damn near 500 people. So now all these people that normally don't associate with you or me are now getting a little bit of you and a little bit of us, and you know, and vice versa. It's a really cool community, and it extends all the way down, or not down, but it extends all the way across,
right,
to our chat, you know, with guys like Cliff, man. Thank you, Cliff.
Cliff's my guy, man. We've made good friends. We've broke bread together. We've gone to games together. He doesn't live too far from us, so we get together with him whenever we can. He's a great guy. You're gonna have a lot of fun with him in Canton. And thank you, Cliff, for helping set this up. You're a good friend. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate all you guys in chat. Antmis, we know all you. Antmis, Plank, Cliff. I don't know Cheryl, but Thigh and Smy, he's our producer. Mm-hmm. So we just thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it. You guys, everyone here is awesome. I'm glad to be a part of this. Yeah. Really.
What's crazy is up until this point, we haven't even connected, but all these guys are in our chat on a regular basis too. Mm-hmm. And I think they just love the Bears so much, and we love them too. But they're in our chat, they're in your chat, watching it in podcasts and whatever. It's safe to say that our community of Bears fans are by far and away blow out any 31 of the other teams. Like, we have some legendary, intelligent fans, man. No one else has fans like us, brother. No way.
It's the only reason why I do it.
Yeah, amen, Trax. Yep, and you can catch Dan and the crew from Bear Country podcast, friends, Thursday nights this summer, 8 p.m. Central. Dan, I tell you what though, what you just spoke a few minutes ago was music to Trax's ears, music to my ears, to the entire Bears Nation. When you predicted a 13-4 season and a Super Bowl run for our beloved Bears in 2024. Now, I know that part of you is that's your heart talking, but can you give us kind of a breakdown? How did we get there? How did the Bears go 13-4? What has to happen for this team to pull off one of the most incredible comeback seasons in the history of American professional sports?
Well, the defense, I think the secondary is so improved that I think we're going to see, kind of talking about piggybacking off of what Jacob was saying about the defense. I think they're going to get coverage sacks this year because the secondary, I think, is one of the best in the league. And the addition of Sweat last year, he's a multiplier. I would like to see him go back and re-sign Yannick Ngakoue, because even though he didn't play very well, he had 4 sacks in 5 games once they got Sweat, and then he got injured. It was very, it kind of broke my heart to see that because he was really starting to build some momentum. So I'd like to see them bring him back and kind of solidify. I think there's that one piece missing on the defensive line, but other than that, I think our linebacking core is solid. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Sewell this year going into, his second year as linebacker. And then, on the offensive side, I mean, look what they've done. I mean, I would love to see Tevin Jenkins play right guard the entire time. I think him and Darnell Wright are a Hall of Fame duo next to each other on the right side. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that they wisen up to that and maybe just try Nate Davis at left guard, because I think those two are spectacular next to each other. You add in the 2 wide receivers. I mean, Rome Odunze, who's gonna cover Rome Odunze when they're doubling or Keenan Allen? And then you add in this incredible talent. The Windy City Productions put together a video. If you haven't seen it, you've got to check it out. It's 20 minutes of Caleb Williams throwing from the pocket. For all the people that didn't think he was a pocket passer or were poo-pooing him for not being a pocket passer, he's a hero baller. No, some of his best passes came from the pocket. Plays that he has someone smacking him in the face right onto his back as the ball comes out. In a normal situation, you think, oh, that's an interception. But the ball just travels 15 yards farther than you thought it was. The guy, he's like leading the guy open still. I think he's another multiplier, Caleb Williams. I think he is the difference. I think when you add all of the team that they've built around him, I mean, Poles himself said he wasn't that interested in the haul of picks by trading that, because not everyone's going to make the team, because the team is getting close enough. Hell, he was so confident he took a punter. So that's another reason, that guy could win us 2 or 3 games. If he's putting the ball inside the 10-yard line or better every punt, and you're constantly stressing out the other team's offense by putting them in that situation time in and time out, that causes stress. How many times have we been there, right? We're like, Jesus, we can't get past the 15. How are we going to score? And I just think you add up all those things. To me, it's kind of a little bit of a secret to this year's success as to how I think they're just going to come out, punch people in the mouth. People are going to be overlooking them a little bit until it's a little bit too late. And then by then we're going to have the momentum going into the divisional games in the second half of the season. And I just really think that I'm always overly optimistic every year. I don't think I've ever predicted a losing record, but something feels different about this team to me.
Yeah.
I think you guys feel the same, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can just feel it in your bones. You can feel it in practice, everything we see. It's going to be a fun year. And this has been so much fun with you, Dan. Thank you again, my friend, for joining us. Our great friend Cliff Victoria Tracks for hooking us up. Dan is on Bears Country Podcast and Productions. Watch him Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central this summer on YouTube. And hey, thanks for everything you do for Bears Nation, Dan. We can't wait to bear down with you and what should be a great 2024 season.
Oh man, me too. You just gave me chills. Thank you so much, man, from the bottom of my heart. Really appreciate you guys having me on. Can't wait to do this again with you. Our platform, we'll support each other from here on out. Feels like a good relationship is building here, and I'm looking forward to the future. Talking more Bears with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much, Dan. You have a great time with the family. And yeah, Trax, boy, I tell you what, that is boy, you want to talk about bringing Bears Nation together, like you said, partner. Dan has done that so well with what he's doing at Bears Country Productions.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that because we try to have fun, and I think that's what brings us all together is our fun, So
Yeah.
I'll end this with Happy 4th of July to you guys. Be safe. Enjoy yourself. Don't drink too much. Don't blow off your fingers, and
Some digits.
have fun celebrating the birthday of our wonderful country. And I look forward to see you. Let me say that again. I look forward to seeing you guys again in the near future. Thank you again.
Sure.
We look forward to catching up with you too, Dan, as well. True words have never been spoken. Trax, like Dan said, it's all fun and games till someone loses a pinky on the 4th of July. Yep.
Who's that? A guy from the Giants, the defensive end.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 years ago. Jason
Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, Pierre-Paul. Yeah.
Pierre-Paul. Yeah.
He's still terrorizing in quarterbacks, man, with missing digits. Man.
Yeah, I know, and he's still doing well. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised.
3-finger Mordecai Brown.
Guys, be safe. Bear down. I have to get back to work because I'm going on vacation next week. So I'm gonna be listening to you guys while I'm working. So bear down.
Sure, man. Thanks.
You guys have a great night. Thank you.
We appreciate it, Dad. No rest for the weary Bears fan.
Hey, guys.
You have a great one, Dan.
Hey, Cleet, before we get moving, Cliff had a good question. I want to try to take
how do you guys start?
Short route, because sometimes I like to go all the way around the block when I could just walk across the street and do the same thing.
Yeah, and I've never heard this story either. Yeah.
So Cliff asked, Trax, how did you get started? Well, in my mind, when I was a kid, one of the coolest cats I ever paid attention to as a kid was my mailman. He had the shorts on. I lived in California year round. He had the shorts on. He'd have his bag, and he had his Walkman on. And he was always listening to San Francisco Giants games. He's listening to Barry Bonds and Will Clark and all those dudes terrorize the Padres and, the Cubs and everybody. But every once in a while, I'd ask him, and I'd try to talk to him because he's super cool dude. And he's like, hey, Barry Bonds is up to bat, and I was like, man, that's so cool. He's like listening, enjoying himself while he's working. And I found myself later on doing the same thing as I got a little bit older. I was doing some delivery routes and things like that and carpentry and whatnot. And always listening, to Mike Golick and Mike Greenberg, and I'm like, I played some ball. I played some college ball. I played some semi-pro, left tackle, all that. But I wasn't a Mike Golick, and I'm not as smart as a Northwestern Greenberg, So I didn't think I could ever get on something like that. And the podcast started rolling out, and my neighbor, Greg Braggs with CHGO, he was hitting it hard with Braggs in the stands and all that. And I'm like, hey, this could be me. So I had my little phone, and I had it propped up on my town trash can in my garage because I didn't want to disrupt, the kid and the wife and everything. And I had it propped up, and I had one viewer, and I was live on Facebook, and my phone dropped it. It hit the ground. I'm like, hold on, don't leave me. And I'm running over there, and I'm picking my phone up out of the corner of my eye. I see a Folgers coffee can, and I go run and grab it, and I use it as a backstop so I don't lose my phone. And then next thing you know, I'm getting hooked up with amazing guys like Cleet and Coop, and it just started rolling, man. We've just been hustling ever since, ain't it, bro?
Yeah. And 2 years later, what are the numbers at? The numbers right now are insane, Trax, for where we
got almost 5,000 on Facebook. We got about 1,000 on Twitter X app. We've got almost 900, and they just gave us an email from YouTube saying that we can do the super chat. So I was talking to Dan a little bit earlier on what that's all about. So we're going to start implementing that now, which is really cool. Got about 900 on there, and then so it's been cool, man. And of course, through like 57 or something different Bears groups and whatever, we always post our stuff on there and let everybody know when we have an event where we're doing like an autograph signing with like Dan Hampton or somebody like that. And then, Cleet will write our show production, our show outline, our script, and be able to ask some juicy, awesome questions in front of, an event full of people. Or we'll go to, we'll take those same celebrities, Chicago Bear alumni, over to the tailgate over at Soldier Field, and they'll sign autographs and everything like that, and take, our stickers or business cards or whatnot, and kind of grow out there too. It's been really cool. And then now with a little bit later, I end up running into Misty, Mongo's wife, and I started doing a fundraiser, and Cleet's, been very helpful with that, writing the shows and stuff. And we've been going to all these different sports bars and stuff, raising money from Mongo's ALS, and getting in touch with his friends and Bears, superstars that he played with, 85 Bears and all that kind of stuff. And it just organically happened. And right now here we are, man, interviewing really cool cats like Dan, bro. From Bears country.
And you mentioned it before, Trax. Big stuff coming up at the Hall of Fame game coming up in August. Can you give us a little bit? I know the details are still being worked on, but you're going to be there for Mongo's induction, for Devin's induction, Julius. What can our CSP family look forward to there?
Oh, there. Okay. So basically, I got an email a couple months ago saying that by this Monday, I believe is the 1st, I have to have all of my money in for to get into to go to Canton. He invited me to Canton with Mongo invited me to Canton with his family. And he's only got a select amount of people that he can take with him as far as guests go. So I'm going to be there. I also got a press pass too. So I'll be able to interview Devin Hester, and basically anybody else, Patrick Willis, Dwight Freeney, obviously Peppers, and any of the former Bears too that have already been in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, we've already interviewed Singletary. We've already, interviewed Dan Hampton and a bunch of other Hall of Famers that were Bears and stuff too. So it's going to be really cool. It's going to be an honor to be there with his family and be there to rep Mongo. And I'm sure you've heard on the news that he's not able to make it. Walter's boy, he broke the news on WGN that he's not able to make it because of his health and stuff. So they're going to keep him back, but they're actually going to fly him the bust. And everybody's seen the bust by now, is where he had the long hair back in the day when he, raised havoc on all and nightmares on all the QBs that he sacked and tortured. So it's really cool that they're going to be there and do something live for him and then bring it back. And then Misty, his wife, and his daughter, Macy, will be there in attendance for the rest of it. So it'll be really cool. We'll be there. I'll be repping Chicago Sports Podcast. I've asked all the co-hosts if anybody want to go, but man, it's kind of hard in the work week to break rank and head up there, and it costs a lot too. But it's such an honor and a privilege to be a part of this. I don't think I'll ever be, and I mean, I might. Who knows? We'll see. But I doubt I'll ever be invited by another Hall of Famer. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, Cleet, and I just want to thank everybody from Chicago Sports Podcast, including my co-hosts, who kept it real and made it real and helped me along the way for all of this kind of stuff too. You know what I mean? Because I've always felt like, even in the chat, if you win, we win. If I win, we win. If any one of us wins, we all win. And I really feel that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm just there, and I'm honored to be there, to represent us, man. As a fan for the fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Bears history, in live Bears history, 3 Bears going in the Hall of Fame, I believe, for the first time ever. And like you said, this long, arduous road that Mongo and his family have taken to get there, and to have you there for our family and our community. It's so awesome, Trax. And I agree 100%. I know you do, Track, with Mr. Ciordi. Let's just hope, good Lord willing, Mongo hangs in there, because we want him to be able to see that when Jared introduces him as the newest member of the National Football League Hall of Fame.
I want to brag about you for a minute though, because there was something very powerful and very important that came out of Cleet's brain and not mine, and that was that write up where you how did you word it? I don't want to
Oh yeah, you know what?
word it short.
Yeah, it just came to me, Trax. It came to me a few months ago when Mongo had that setback. Remember that setback in I want to
This
say
is huge. Turn your volume up. This is changing this guy. And I'm telling you, not just him, but guys that are huge. Dan Pompey. Everybody knows Dan Pompey. The other cat. What's the who's the Pete? One of the guys that have been on the Hall of Fame board for years, dude.
right. Mhm.
Oh man, who's that? What's that freaking guy's name? All these guys we're talking about. Cleats. What did you call it, bro?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it just kind of came to me when Mongo had that setback. Remember when he had the setback, he went back in the hospital. I'm like, man, if we all could live like Mongo, and that just kind of stuck that, we should all live our life like Steve Mongo McMichael, with everything you've got. And, and it's really kind of become a mantra. I think about our community, Tracks, and other people. But yeah, what we did is we were trying to make that last minute push to get Mongo in the Hall of Fame, Tracks. That was the letter that we sent out to Hall of Fame voters and all. And yeah, it's really powerful. But yeah, live life like Mongo with everything you got is really kind of like the slogan we adopted with our push to get him in. So it is big. And you were right there, my friend. You were right there putting the word out, everybody.
So before you sell yourself short, because you never should, this guy's a journalist. He, lives in Iowa, does all this writing for everybody. He goes to his daughter's ball games, and he does like the announcing and all this sort of stuff. He does all kinds of stuff everywhere, guys. But he wrote this letter of why Mongo should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm reading this, and I'm just reading it to Mongo and to Misty, and she fails to tell me that Dan Pompey's right there. And I'm reading this thing, and I hear clapping, like a standing ovation. And I'm like, whoa. Hold on a second. I hear more than two hands clapping, because I mean, it's sad, but I know that Mongo's not clapping, right? Because if he could, he would. Actually, it brought a tear to his eye. But Dan Pompey, he said, I'm Peter King. That's the other guy. He sent that to Peter King, Tony Dungy, everybody that's on the board of why Mongo should be in the Hall of Fame. And they said that was beautifully put. And that was one of the main reasons that they looked at him into being inducted in the Hall of Fame. That is from their lips to your ears right now, guys. What he read, I wish I could find it right now. I know it's in an email somewhere, but you've sent me over 1,000 emails for all of the shows that you've written for us. But dude, this guy is freaking, he's a legend, bro. He is a freaking legend with his words, man. It was beautiful.
Well, thank you.
If Dan Pompey says that, that is huge, bro. That is huge.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. And just to be part of it, I think it was a thrill for me. And I thank you for asking me to like what I could do to help out. And the fact that, it took a Bears Nation to make it happen. And I think everybody came together do it. So thank you, Trax. Thank you, Cliff, everyone. This is an absolute joy being part of the CSP family. Yeah. Hey, Trax, as we said, partner, this is a big, big Chicago sports night. You talked about you built CSP from the ground up. Chicago Blackhawks, as we know, are trying to do that same thing, built the foundation of something great. And they took another big step tonight. Of course, we know 1 year ago, Trax, Connor Bedard comes in. He becomes the face of the Chicago Blackhawks. He just wins the Calder Trophy yesterday as the NHL's best rookie. But now he's got his wingman. And we know, Trax, Batman can't fly. Doesn't work without Robin. George Clooney doesn't work in Ocean's 11 without Brad Pitt. Heck, Roman Reigns doesn't work in the Bloodline without Paul Heyman. He needs to have support, and he gets that tonight. And I really think is just a tremendous draft pick by the Blackhawks, ladies and gentlemen. We will set it up for you once again. Blackhawks have this drafted with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NHL draft, Ayrton Leishnovich. From Michigan State, Big Ten Rookie of the Year and Defenseman of the Year in 2023-24. Trax, you look at that Blackhawks dynasty. Yeah, you have the great offense there with Patrick Kane and company, Jonathan Toews, but that dynasty was built on great defense. It was built on great defensemen. And I always thought that the reason why that fell apart, Trax, is when we lost those guys. What do you think about this pick? Is this the dance partner that Connor Bedard needs to really kind of get this rebuilding effort really going to another level?
I think he needs a little bit of pressure taken off him.
Yeah.
I think he needs somebody from his era that he has been out, and seen on the ice and whatnot, some sort of comfortability. And now he gets to be the 1 year up elder statesman, but also to take the pressure off him, because let's be honest, this year is a rookie and rookie of the year and the Calder, of the year, all that stuff that he did for us, even with a broken jaw. This guy, if he would have played the full season, would have been even more amazing than he already was amazing. It'd be amazing to the second power. But I really think that this is very important, and I don't think that they're going to stop there. I wish I could see the draft right now, but as we speak, isn't it going on right now, Cleet?
Yeah, going out late in the first round. Now, we do have another pick, Trax at 18. I think they may have made that pick. I have not seen it yet, but my gut feeling is they'll probably go offense there. But this is the guy the Chicago media, including the Sun Times, were projecting that general manager Kyle Davidson would go with. The thing about what's exciting about this kid, Trax, 18 years old. And like I said before, I've covered him in the United States Hockey League when he was with the Green Bay Gamblers. This guy can set a forecheck like very few kids. I mean, this is an old school Bobby Probert type of enforcer, but he has such a wide, diverse game, and he'll bring a lot of offense to the Blackhawks as well.
How do we keep his name on our tongue without stumbling? What's a good way to? Does he have a nickname? I like nicknames, bro.
Well, I tell you what, I would be surprised if he might turn into Artie. I can see him becoming
Artie.
Artie Leishnovich. Belarus, I believe he's originally from. Hey, Trax, talking about Chicago Phenoms, let's talk about the work of a girl that you were on before anybody. You called her not just being a top WNBA draft pick, but being a bona fide superstar. You were proud for Brandon Hyatt. Trax, it was another night and yet another WNBA double-double record for Angel Reese last night. The Sky superpower forward rookie doubled up the 2-time defending league champion Las Vegas Aces for 18 points and 11 rebounds Thursday night to extend her WNBA double-double record. Trax, she's averaging a wowing 13 points and 11 rebounds per game, which ranks second in the WNBA behind only the amazing A'ja Wilson. Trax right now is the only defensive matchup that can silence Angel these days. An off day? I mean,
yeah, it really is, because she's just like a Swiss Army knife. She will, if you beat her and she's having a rough night shooting, and I know people have said she's missed layups and got rebounds, and hey, why not? What are you going to do? Like, let the ball that you shot, you're taught as a little tyke in the YMCA, when you shoot the ball, you go after your own rebound. That's what she's doing. You got a problem with that? At least she's freaking cleaning up her own mess, right? And at some point, those are going to go in. So I love it. I love the effort. I love the dog mentality. I love Camilla. I love what they're, doing over there. I think it's great. I really wish we could have somebody like Caitlin, but that's one in a lifetime. But I mean, just, somebody, what's sad is, and Cleet, you probably know the girl, I think she was from Utah, top scorer from the outside in the, college basketball, whatnot. We draft her and, they had to cut her because there's not enough roster space. And if I knew, a senator or somebody important or whatever the heck I got to do, I'd suck it up all the way to whole damn chain to figure this out for the poor ladies. But they should be able to keep her because honestly, that's what they need right now. They need an outside sharpshooter. And that lady that from Utah, I think she was a top scorer, producer, a shooter in the nation and stuff like that. I think that's all that Angel and Camille is really needing right now, bro.
Yeah, and how scary to think is for how scary for opponents is it, Trax, to think this girl is still just 21 years old.
That's crazy that she's that young and she tied Candace's record. Is that what it is, bro?
I do believe, tight. I think she can break it with her next game. But yeah, you're talking about Candace Parker. To do what she did as a rookie without question. Trax, you brought up the Achilles heel of this guy right now. That is that lack of a consistent, steady outside game and 3-point presence. Truth or fiction, Trax? Can Angel in the Sky play their way to the 2024 WNBA playoffs?
Do they have? I'm going to be honest with you guys because you know how I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an open book. Do they even have a play-in tournament in the WNBA?
I think you got to go top. They'd have to go top 8. Which is doable. Which is doable.
Where are they at right now, Cleet? Do you know? Or am I putting
right now I believe they're about 5 games under 500. I'll check the wire right here.
Would that put them within the 8th seed?
I think right now that would put them just outside of it. I want to say, Trax. If the playoffs were to start today,
with how many more games left, brother? Isn't it like 30
plenty of game? And then they're going to have a long break coming up, Trax, for the Olympics. They are currently 6-10. They have the Lynx coming up on Sunday. That's a 2 p.m. game. That'll be on ESPN3. Lynx are 13-4, but the Sky have them at home. So like you said, this is a team that still has some pieces to fill, but you have Marina Mabrey's coming along, the terrific guard. She's averaging 15 points a game. But like Trax said, this Sky team desperately needs a steady gunner and sniper from 3-point land to really carry them night in and night out.
Cleet, I just want to say one other thing too. I think if I would have had my son first before my daughter, and obviously my daughter's going to be 20, son's 8 years old, but if it was reversed, I probably would have raised a meatball because I'm a meatball, and my daughter, she really softened my heart and whatever, and I followed her in all her sports. I put her anywhere from equestrian to skating, ice skating, whatever she wanted to be till she figured out. I put her in and all this kind of stuff. And I am all about women's sports. I think this is great. You have a daughter too. It's so cool. And honestly, guys, I know some of you out there don't have daughters, but it's really cool to see the WNBA because now you can actually show your little tykes and your little ones and stuff where they potentially could go. And the more it grows, the bigger their eyes get, an opportunity and dreams and all that kind of stuff. I mean, honestly, for a while, I honestly wasn't even paying attention to the WNBA. I knew it was out there, but it kind of faded off. So I'm really glad that locally we have something really cool to look at, man.
Yeah,
and I'm all about it, man. I'm all about
absolutely. It. And the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, as you can imagine, has literally every girl in Iowa, just 6 to 12 out playing basketball. It seems like once a week. Hey, Trex, breaking news. The Blackhawks are not just doubling up in the draft in the first round. They're tripling up. Listen to this, Trex. Breaking news. The Blackhawks now have traded their 34th and 50th overall. Those are second-round picks to the Carolina Hurricanes for the Canes' 27th overall pick. So the Blackhawks tonight now will be making 3 first-round picks. Goes back to what you were talking about, getting as much help as possible for Connor Bedard. So we'll keep an eye on that, folks, too, as we go along. Blackhawks now with picks at 2, 18, and 27 in the draft. So
what did that do for Carolina? Were they a top team this year? Is that why they wanted to move up like that and get double
Well,
picked
yeah, I
and all
think
that
so.
kind of
I think
stuff?
Carolina, I think, is just drafting for depth. They were a playoff team. I think went to the second round of the Eastern Conference Finals,
Yeah,
Eastern Conference playoffs this year. So I think they're just looking for depth there.
yeah.
With the question, but Trax, my friend, this has been so much fun. Before we call tonight, anything you coming up here that we want to let people know about for next week on Chicago Sports Podcast? We have show coming up on Monday night.
Yeah, we have Taylor coming up, and she's also she's been on here before.
Mhm.
She's with Windy City Gridiron. She also has her helmets and heels. She's down there in Jacksonville, Florida. Taylor Doll. We are supposed to have her. Hold on, I'm looking at her text right now. Wednesday at 7:30. We're gonna do it a little bit early for her because she's an early riser for her shows and stuff. And she's also on the East Coast, obviously in Florida. So 660 right now across all platforms watching us live earlier before and now. So please hit that like and subscribe button. Be a friend, tell a friend, leave a 5-star review, smash that notification bell. We love you. We couldn't do this without you. We love that we're being able to spend the night with you, being able to share a little bit of Blackhawks live breaking news as Cleat was able to do that. That's so cool. And you're able to find that while we're talking about our Bears, while we're talking about the WNBA of Chicago, while we're breaking it all down. And one of Cleat's most favorite sports is Chicago baseball.
Oh yeah.
So I would like to talk a little bit about that because the Cubs have just recently snapped a losing streak, and that is very good.
Yeah, it is, Trax. And I tell you what, if they could pull off a miracle here, they're down 4-2, bottom nine against the Brewers. They're down to their last bullet, 2 out here. Pete Carroll Armstrong at the plate.
That's
Scoreboard, Cheryl Chiders has been keeping us up to date all night long. Cheryl, thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
this is
Cheryl.
huge, Trax. This is, I really think, I mean, obviously it's a big season and it's just gone final. The Brewers win 4-2. The Cubs have to come back and win this series. It's just mathematically, if they're going to be any kind of factor in that NL Central race, they have 2 tracks because I believe now this puts them, I want to say 11 games behind the Brew Crew. If they get swept, we're talking they'd be 13 out on July 1st, and you're just not coming back against this Brewers team against that. So, we were talking about the other night, Wednesday night, you and I, Coop, until this team gets some kind of answers in the bullpen, I just don't see things turning around. And I hope I'm so wrong on that, but we've got to solve the problem in the bullpen. We've got to figure out why we can't hit to save our life with runners in scoring position. Those are the 2 Achilles heels right now that are just taking this team further and further out of playoff contention. So it's really, I really think, sure, yeah, it's mid-season, but it's do or die now for the Chicago Cubs. They have to make a decision right here today. Are we going to be, are we in it? Are we a real contender, or are we just going through the motions? And right now, it looks like they're just going through the motions, unfortunately.
Well, what bothers me about that whole thing, and we talked about this at length, so I really won't get into it because we're closing, but that the whole deal is, Jed Hoyer thinks that we could find the answer within. No, we can't, Jed.
No.
We cannot. You're starting to sound like freaking Biden last night when he was arguing with rocks in his mouth. Like, seriously, bro, there's no way in heck, man. I'm not trying to get political. I'm just being real.
Oh, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. That's it. I'm not getting into politics. But the whole deal is, man, there's no way we could find it within. As well as I know, we need a powerful bat. We need to spend a little money, and we need to get those relievers, middle relief, and a closer would be huge. I heard they were shopping to get a closer, and it sounded like a good one. So I am actually, as much as I am competitive with the Sox, I don't mind them having a little bit of success as long as they don't have as much success as my Cubs. Yeah. So I know it sounds a little slanted, a little weird, but it is what it is.
And you don't have to worry about that happening this year, Trax, without question.
But they are doing good at points, and that's kind of cool. So I seen a win. What was it, last night or the night before? So they're plugging away over there, drinking their campfire shakes. But hopefully they're spiking them with Bailey's because
Yeah.
you know, outside of bringing your dog to the park, there's not many good nights there except for when it comes to food and beverage. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think for the White Sox, I think the goal for this team, particularly these young kids, it sounds crazy, Tracks, but the goal should be trying to avoid the all-time Major League Baseball loss record. And you could say, okay, that's not really shooting for the moon, but if this team, as bad as the first half as they played, where they're almost 40 games under here on June 28th, if they can avoid that record, well, at least that's something to build on. It's not much, but it's something, Tracks.
Yeah.
So hopefully that turns around. But really quickly on the Cubs, back to your point, brother, you're right on the money. Why Jed refuses to make a move to shore up that bullpen I just can't figure it out.
The money's there, right, Cleet? You're a good numbers guy. The money's got to be there. We're not
the money is there, and we're talking bullpen, so you're not going to have to go make a $20 or $30 million commitment to somebody long term. You're just looking for a set of guys who can get you outs, guys who can hand the ball off when you still have the lead. So their big move, like we've been talking about, they've got to make a move in the bullpen. Today, Keegan Thompson goes on the 15-day injured list. The only thing they do is call up Jorge Lopez from Iowa. Now, Jorge Lopez has been a good reliever at times in Major League Baseball, but that's not the move that's going to solve that bullpen problem, Tracks. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think their only chance, and it would be a roll of the dice, is to completely blow up that bullpen. I don't know who I keep at this point. Maybe I keep Wozniacki, and I know that he's shuffling between the rotation.
Yes, I love him.
But other than that, I start from scratch. And if you if you don't do it for this year, do it for next year, because that bullpen right now it should be brought up on arson charges. 18 below and saved money on the year.
Hey, Cleet, what about that story with the Sox? That top score producer as a pitcher, he's just coming in. He's coming in hot. They're talking about trading him off for like 3 or 4 prospects. I'm like, dude, really? You finally got somebody that is replacing freaking Dylan Cease. And I know some Sox fans out there are actually paying like whatever it costs, highway robbery, MLB prices, just so they can watch Cease pitch every 5th game, bro.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. The reason they're shopping him, Tracks, is that was going to be Luis Robert Jr. He was going to be the guy, but Robert right now is struggling so badly. At this point, he has no trade value, so they're going to Plan B to get any kind of a talent back that they can. It's a shame, but just like a big amen to our crew out there, Cliff. Mr. Ciotti, our veterans, thank you so much for your service, Tracks. Thanks yours. Happy 4th of July. Indeed, that's coming up here before we know it. You and the fam got any big plans for the 4th, Tracks?
I did, but my boss asked me to work, and if you work at a steel mill and you're working like 12 hours, it's big money. Like I could call off the next day if they let me, but then they'll ding me for like the max pay that I could make that day. So they already know what we would do if they didn't have that there. But I mean, it's much needed money for some things that we've got going on at the house. Everybody's got stuff that they got to keep up with. So I'm going to work that day, but I'm sure we'll, you still got Friday, you still got Saturday, you still got Sunday. So matter of fact, my family right now is at it was raining. I was out there cutting the backyard and then the freaking parkway, and it was pouring down rain, and my neighbors were probably looking out the window like, what the hell? And I was like, I got to get this in, because I know if the hours hit me at work and my grass grows higher than I like it to look like a green carpet out there. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that guy that's Eddie from freaking Christmas Vacation,
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Any day could be the 4th of July. And Dan, our great guest tonight from Bear Country Podcast. Yes, that's you, Shorty. I had a feeling. I just wanted to make sure, but thank you so much, Dan, for being here tonight. Tracks, thanks for your service. Do not work too hard, my friend, on the 4th of July. Hope you're able to have a great time with the family.
Wait, what do you got going on, bro? What's going on with you and the little one?
I tell you what, out here in Dubuque, we have, I tell you what, the Golden Knights put on just a tremendous air show over the Mississippi River. So my wife Jill, my daughter Mackenzie, and I, we go down with family every year, and the Golden Knights do parachute shows where they're jumping out of the planes, and then we have about a 40-minute fireworks show right on the river after. So we've been doing that, tailgating out there for a few years. So yeah, they should have. I think they're expecting about a crowd of about 50,000 for the Golden Knights. That will be next Wednesday night. Tracks the 3rd is when that show is, I think.
I'm surprised you're not leading that, man. The commentary would be tremendous, man. That'd be great. Gotta get you in there, bro.
Oh man, I tell you what, it's funny though. I always wanted to. I always wanted to jump out of an airplane. In fact, when I was in the Army Reserve, my unit outside Chicago, we were going to be paratroopers. The problem is the unit shut down literally before I was supposed to go to jump school, so I never got a chance to do that. I always thought it would be cool. Ended up having to be a 75 Echo tracks, doing paperwork. But yeah, that would be cool. That's definitely a dream to broadcast that, my friend. That would be awesome. But all righty. Well, hey, listen, my friend, this has been a blast. Thank you so much, Trax. You have a great weekend. And
did we cover all our sponsors for the most part? Did we get?
Oh yeah, too. We hit them tonight, but yeah, let's thank them again, ladies and gentlemen. We, as Trax said, are brought to you by the best sponsorship team in all of podcasting, ladies and gentlemen. We could do it without them. You see them there at the bottom of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Our friends at River Street Tavern, TC's World of Wonders, home of the best online jersey sales and also specials and all of sports, ladies and gentlemen. Bridges Scoreboard, your Northwest Indiana, Chicago sports headquarters with the Hall of Fame menu. Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, where Brandon Trax Hyatt likes to cool off on a hot summer day, where it's always delicious summertime. Budget Jet Cars, a big-time friend of the show. They've been with us a while, Trax. You're the one call you have to make is, Trax, if you need safe, reliable, and affordable transportation in Chicagoland this summer, is our good friends at Budget Jet Cars. Also want to thank Underdog Fantasy Tracks, the official fantasy sports partner of Chicago Sports Podcast. Get in on the fun with Underdog Fantasy. Also, we cannot do this without our good friends at the Worth Stadium Club, and proud to welcome back for the upcoming Bears.
Yeah, baby.
El Bandino Yankee. Yes, experience tequila heaven with Chris Chelios's El Bandino Yankee.
Hide your budget card keys. Hide your budget card keys before you get into that El Bandino.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Move to the core.
Exactly. Trax, you can give me a great idea. This year for Bears, when we do Bears previews, we should do the Budget Jet Cars keys to the game. I think that would be a perfect way to get folks revved up for Bears games on Sunday.
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Sounds like a plan. Trax, you're the best. This is so much fun, my friend. Man. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that is for our executive producer and the founder of CSP, Brandon, the Punky LT Trax Hyatt. I'm Cleve Campbell. To our wonderful family, Cliff, Plank, Shorty, Cheryl, the whole game. We love you. We can't wait to see you next Monday night. And until we meet again, keep living your life, friends, like Steve Mongo McMichael, with everything you've got. We'll see you next time, friends, on Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse.